that group. And what's difficult, and this is why it's important with DMR, you do want to leave like little gaps. It's frustrating when you go on Brandmeister Worldwide 91, that's nonstop talking 24 hours a day. There's constantly people talking from all over the place. And on Saturdays, starting at 10 a.m. on Brandmeister 91, they do the net of the world. And they start in Japan, and they go through every country in the world, continent by continent. They get to America around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And they have 3 or 4 different net controls that swap off. And it is pretty cool to listen to. But the real problem is now you're on your hotspot and you chunk into 91 and you hear all this traffic. Now you want to get out. Getting out is hard because you need a little space to chunk in for your 4,000 to get out. That's why, like with the open spot, what's nice is that you can just do it on a computer and just hit a button and you're out. But and it really, that's only a problem on Worldwide. But it is, if you want to switch out to another talk group, you go 4,000 and then you change it to the talk group that you want to go in, and then you go into the next talk group. So, okay, so I want to talk a little bit this time division multiple access. One of the parameters on when you're programming your radio is the time slot. And what does this mean? Because if you're not on the right time slot, it's not going to work. So there are 2 time slots, time slot 1 and time slot 2. So the way DMR works is that how does it do 2 conversations on 1 repeater at the same time? How can you be doing that? Well, the way it does it, it divides every 60 milliseconds into 2 30 millisecond time slots. When you're talking continuously for every 60 milliseconds of you talking, your radio compresses down into a file that's 30 milliseconds long, transmits it on your time slot, while the other guy who's on time slot 2, his 60 milliseconds is being compressed down to 30 milliseconds, and it's transmitted on times, taking turns, and then it's sent out to your radio, and then your radio decompresses this file, and you hear your voice continuously. And this is one of the reasons why with DMR, it does sound like everybody's talking underwater in a way. And it's this compressed file that's being expanded where you lose some of the audio quality. That's why that frequency division is a little bit better, because there's no compression. It's just like you're getting squeezed into 6.25, the other guy's getting squeezed into the other 6.25. It's like having 2 different frequencies on the same repeater. And so here it shows a picture that this guy is talking on time slot 1, and this guy is listening on time slot 1, while this guy is talking on time slot 2, and this guy is listening on time slot 1. And I just want to go back and kind of go through just the one idiosyncrasy with our network here in Connecticut. View, slideshow, there we go. Is that if you look here at this chart a little bit more closely, here is your time slot 2 talk groups, and this column is your time slot 1 talk groups. And the way we set it up here in Connecticut is the time slot 2 is the more important one. And so they set it up that you do not need to chunk your way into time slot 2. If you just turn your radio on to Connecticut statewide and someone's talking, you don't have to chunk it. But all the time slot 1s, you gotta chunk it every 15 minutes. And it's not you, someone has to chunk it. So if you talk on the local repeater and then 10 minutes later you talk onto it, the repeater is just gonna stay open. So so someone has to chunk it every 15 meter or use it every 15 minutes or so. This is the main ones from community or emergency communication, and we have all these other kind of accessory ones. Now, here's some idiosyncrasies. Well, these frequencies are time slot, or talk groups are time slot 2, and these are on time slot 1. If I'm talking on Connecticut statewide here, and you're talking on worldwide, they're on different time slots, no problem. You're both talking. But if I'm talking on Connecticut statewide, and then you want to start talking on Connecticut TAC 2, it's not going to work. And your radio is just going to reject it, and you're like, what's going on? Because I don't hear anybody talking. It seems open, but I'm not getting in. It probably is because someone is talking somewhere else. And that does happen when we're doing our statewide net. Where everybody's checking on statewide, but sometimes we get a little dropout because somebody else is deciding, hey, I'm going to have a conversation on TAC 4. So there's not that much, it doesn't happen often, but if you're wondering, like, something wrong with my radio or whatever, no, it's not. That's basically what's happening. And by looking at the website, on the internet, what's going on, you can kind of figure that out. So let me continue down here. Okay, now talk permission. This is a setting that's in your radios, and it's different. It's called different for different radios. So there's basically 3 different settings. You got always, channel free, color code free, which is in the like Motorola radios, or in any tone, it's called different color code. So what does this mean? Well, always is you're going to transmit always. No matter who's talking, no matter what talk group that's on or what time slot's on, you're just going to transmit. And that allows you to double with somebody else. And as a net control operator, the vast majority of people set it for always. And you do hear some doubling, and it is possible when you have multiple repeaters going on. But it makes it so I can't hear anybody. I just hear a bunch of garbled stuff, and I know someone's is doubled. If channel free, this is if nobody is using the frequency, you go through. But if someone else is talking on the frequency, which could be time slot 1 or time slot 2, then when you key down, your radios go beep, 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 and it'll be like a little red light going off. And like, what's going on? I'm not getting through. It's because someone else is using the repeater on another talk group where you can't hear on one of the time slots. Well, this is kind of self-defeating because you're supposed to be able to have 2 simultaneously conversations as long as you're not in the same time slot. So this is really only good for simplex. And I have to say that DMR simplex is pretty awesome. And last year, a group of our Aries members went down and we volunteered for the New York Marathon. And we were mile 17. Mile 17. The Wara Club from Milford, they were mile 16. And it was a little bit of a stretch for analog from one end of our posting to the other end. And there was some static and there was some background noise and we had some, QRM, but we switched to our backup DMR simplex frequency and we had perfect audio. And not only did we have perfect audio, we had really strong audio. Even though if you would have listened on FM, that voice would have been so far down in the noise, you wouldn't have been able to hear anything. But like FT8, DMR can really translate weak signals well. So just kind of keep that in mind. And in your code plug that I put in, I did program a few DMR simplex frequencies for you. Go ahead.
So is that peer-to-peer?
That's peer-to-peer, directly, no repeater. But if you're using a repeater, you want your radio to be set, if it's a Motorola or a Linko, to color code free, or as an Anytone, different color code. And so what does this mean? So if somebody is using a talk group on the time slot that you want to get into, so as back in time slot 2, Connecticut statewide, but also all the Connecticut TAC, regional TAC 1 through 5. So but someone is talking on TAC 1 and you want to talk on statewide and you key down, your radio knows that someone is talking on that time slot, and it'll go beep, 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 and you're like, oh, someone's talking on it. But what's wonderful is, you all do nets here, it completely eliminates doubling. So if you're conducting a net, you're not going to get anybody double, because whoever's in first is going to be in first, and it's going to block everybody else. And so when we check into the statewide net, you don't want to do this is, and then listen, and then come in again. You just go, you hit this is, and your radio goes beep, 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 red, you're not in. You just let go. I actually look at the internet when I'm net control, and I'll talk, and I see if my name comes up, I know I'm the guy, and I just talk. So, basically different color code or color code free if you're doing a net or if you're using repeaters is the polite way to conduct DMR. Any questions? Okay, so you write your code plug. There is 6 steps to writing a code plug. First, the first thing you want to do is you hook up your radio to your computer. You want to download whatever is on your radio to your code plug. That is your starting point, because then you want to modify that and then send it back to the radio. And this is the bad thing about DMR, is that DMR, the code plugs aren't very specific. So what do I mean by this? You have an anytone, and it comes with version 1, and or version 3, and your buddy has an older anytone, and he's written this awesome code plug, but he has version 1. So he emails you the code plug, and you try to import it into your radio, and it won't work, because you don't have the same version CPS. Even though it's the same make, same model, same everything, it's just your code plug is 2 generations newer than his, it won't work. You can open his code plug in your software, no problem, and look at it, and then you try to send it, and it says error. And you're like, what's going on? Really what you want to do is you want to download your code plug from your radio. That's your base where everything's all set up perfectly. And then there, on all these softwares, there's an import function. And then you import that other code plug into yours, and it just populates the whole thing. And now it's yours. And then you send it to your radio, and that's fine. So that is the difficulty with, like, if I was going to come and say everybody had a 878, for example, I would say, hey, before you come here, I just want you to update your software to the latest software or latest CPS on your radio, latest firmware. And now, because we all have the same firmware, it's just easy. Boom, I just send one file over and then all is good. So what's wonderful, all right.